Or under the Eiffel Tower.
Who put that equestrian course there?
Well, nothing's happening, so.
Wow, look at that. Other side of the world. Middle of the day, sunny. Here we are. Middle of winter, freezing. Stupid little Melbourne. And we're back, listeners, for another episode of The W. Yes, so as you might have gathered from that intro, we're watching the Olympics. We've got full-blown Olympic fever. I'm here in my Australian Boomers jersey. Marco's there in his, I'll find it, his Zambia soccer goalie jersey.
That's good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
it's crazy that stop Jordan made after the Wizards. Just played for the Boomers for half a season.
Yeah, you got your mouthful there, buddy.
I was eating a bit of hokey pokey. Getting in the Olympic spirit, you might say.
We got the swimming on in the background. Haven't had a W episode for a very long time, it feels.
Yeah.
But here we are today. We are going to talk about the Opals game last night against Nigeria, and we're going to talk about a few Opals and Gangurrus that are on the move or re-signing in the WNBL and what it means with each other. And that'll make more sense when we start talking about it. And yeah, we just finished watching Spain-Greece. Oh, I'm your host, Lucas. This is my co-host, Marco.
Hey, how are you?
How are you going, Marco?
Yeah, good, mate.
Yeah, just finished watching Spain-Greece in the men's basketball draw, which was exciting. Then it wasn't, then it was, then it wasn't. And the Australian Boomers did pretty well, but that's not why we're here today.
No, not at all. We're here to talk about the absolute capitulation from the Australian Opals against Nigeria last night. I don't know, where do you want to begin, Lucas?
Rest in peace, the Australian Opals. I want to begin. I think we should go through the whole game.
Yeah.
I think we should go through all of our qualms throughout the whole game, and then move on to the WNBL free agency. I had a lot of Essendon fans get in touch with me and said, "Wow, that was such an Essendon-like performance."
Yeah.
And even you, me, and Alessio, who were watching the game together, made reference to it a few times. Not the comparison you want to be made. Like, probably the last comparison you want to be made for you. And in terms of the AFL men's relevance, in timely relevance, really couldn't be a worse time to get an Essendon comparison.
Yeah, and not to ham on the metaphor too much, but unlike the Essendon Football Club, the Opals aren't usually very Essendon. They're usually like a very get the job done team. A team that has such good parts. Like, we've spoken so much about this pod and to each other about how good our roster is.
Yeah.
Like, how strong it feels going into this competition. And yet, I think we are, unlike maybe other Australian national teams, the Opals are one of those teams that is greater than the sum of its parts, usually. Usually you can get more out of them than you would think, even with the depth of talent that we have. I mean, we've proven that by medaling at half a dozen Olympics, by finishing third at the World Cup in 2022. 2022?
The World Cup, yeah.
Yeah. But there was just absolutely none of that, let's call it genetic... Yeah. None of that Opals DNA in that game last night.
Yeah.
There was no team identity. There was no play style. There was no execution of whatever the game plan was.
Yeah.
It was just scrambling to make up mistakes from basically the first possession of the game until the last possession. I think in the third quarter, there was maybe a 2-minute stretch where it was oh, cool, we're playing basketball now.
Yeah.
And the other 38 minutes were just doing everything we could to make up for what we'd fucked up, from the word go, basically.
Yeah, so from the word go, first quarter, I feel like we were God, how did we get out of that down 1 point?
Yeah.
No way we could possibly get worse from there. The second quarter, we then lost 23-11. We saw what happened in the first quarter, and then went into the second quarter, and both teams replicated the first quarter, which is what Nigeria would have wanted and not what Australia would have wanted, yet we did that. And yeah, things just went from bad to worse for us. We won that third quarter. went into the last quarter, I think down 4, if my maths serves me correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But down, a couple of possessions. And then we really lost the last quarter. Like, we completely lost the game, completely lost our way of the game. We can get into, we'll get into everything. But I think just from the jump, I wouldn't have started Jade Melbourne, I don't think.
Okay.
First game of a tournament, her first experience with the Opals at the Olympics, and potentially... Oh, actually, probably her first experience with the Opals in like a competitive game, not just a friendly. I think in terms of starting a tournament, Alana Smith, Ezzy, just like these incredible talents. Steph Talbot, you obviously start her. And who started the 2?
Sammy Wickham. Yeah.
And I just think Tess Madgen needs to be the one to just pull them all together. And like, you don't need the most talented 5 players to be out there on the court. You need the player that's going to get them into their spots. And I think that would have been her. And
Tess Madgen, the only Opal with a positive plus minus in 16 minutes, I think.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, because I had in my mind coming into this podcast that like I don't think selection was like the major issue because everything else was so bad. But like I did notice that like it's like what you're saying, like Jade Melbourne is having just like such a good season in the WNBA, developing into such a good player, but like maybe you don't need that from your like maybe you need a bit more of a steady experienced hand at point guard to at least start the tournament, to at least, kind of shake the nerves off or whatever. And like Tess Madgen would definitely have provided that. But it was just like, I think, we'll talk about how bad Australia were a lot, but the one good thing Nigeria did is I think they tried to like take the game to us from the first possession. And the fact that it worked at the beginning just meant that they were always kind of a step ahead of us. Like we were always like scrambling to beat their pressure. And it was just like they didn't expect that could happen. That like, the first few minutes of the first game of the Olympics might be like really, really hard. Like, there might be a lot of pressure put on you from the other team. Yeah, I think there's that like beyond basketball stuff that you see in a basketball game. That just like who is in control of this game, and it was them from the very start. And I never felt like we had any control of any patches. Maybe 5 minutes in the third quarter, but other than that, we weren't really in control of any part of this game. Nigeria came out with a very high press. A press that when we beat it, it looked awful, and when we didn't beat it, it looked like we could have beaten it. In terms of like so many turnovers where it was like that's obviously where the defender is, or where the defender is going, or where the defender is tracking, and we would just give the ball away. Like we weren't making them earn the steals. I don't feel like. And we were just super careless with the ball, and that was something we never regained control of. Like we just kept turning the ball over consistently throughout the whole game. Finished the game with 26 turnovers. It's a 40-minute game, which means you probably have the ball for 20 minutes, which means we had more than turnover a minute, which is just so depressing to think about. And like who we're coming up against. Sure, they might have had a good camp, however you want to chop it. They just don't even come close to the team they have. No, and it wasn't like it was like this insane perfect storm for Nigeria. I think 2 things went their way, which was like, like they had a good defensive game plan, but it's like you're saying, it's like their defenders were in the right positions. They weren't like doing inhuman things. They were just, it's just like, why did you throw the ball there? The Nigerian defender is there. Like, and then 2, was it Camus? Is that her name? Yeah, Kalu. Just shot us out of the game in the first half as well. Like they were incredible from 3, which is just not a strength of theirs. Well, which you might have known coming into the game, and you would have known like watching the second half when they were just chucking absolute trash, like all half long. And then there was that thing where it's like, we'd go into the quarter time break, we'd go into the halftime break, we'd come out of a timeout, and we just turn the ball over straight away. Like that first, the first play, ATO was never good.
Yeah.
Or never executed properly.
Never executed well. Yeah. As you said, camera would cut a few times to Sandy Brondello, and Marco's word of the night was.
Ropeable. Yeah.
Sandy Brondello was very ropeable last night. This is the worst I've ever seen the Opals play.
Yeah.
The inability to get it together. There was no chemistry. The 5 players that playing that started the game were all WNBA players that wouldn't have spent more than a couple of weeks with the rest of the squad. And it feels like the rest of the team that had gained some form of chemistry together. Maybe they looked good in pairings in spurts, but there were a lot of lineups where I feel like people weren't really on the same page, which will end up in your team having 26 turnovers.
Yeah.
But I just think I feel like we failed across the board. Like, I don't think there was a single thing that we did well. Like, even when Magin would come on and try and steady the ship, or when LJ would come on and just spread her calm throughout the team, the rest of the team wasn't ready to accept it. And LJ and Magin combined, out of those 26 turnovers, they only had 2 of them.
Yeah.
Tolo, only player that didn't get a turnover. But starters, 4 of the starters had 4 turnovers, 1 of the starters had 3 turnovers. It was just across the board, just really, really poor overall. And then the body language doctor. I feel like every time, there was never a point where a camera would cut to a player and they'd be talking to him. They would be complaining about a call or have some exasperated look on their face, but there was never come on, let's go, next play, talking to each other or anything like that. So I think that, do you think there's cause for concern?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's a good point, is there was a lot of physical play in the first half where I was okay, we're watching a FIBA game, they're not going to call, light contact. But it was our players weren't quite on board with that. They were surprised that they weren't getting, certain calls. Not overly, not like James Harden would be if he played in the Olympics. But it was just enough that it was nah, you know this. You've played in FIBA games before. You know this is what it's like. You know to expect this sort of physicality and to just play the whistle and not complain, not put your head down when that sort of stuff happens. I'm struggling to think. I want your thoughts on this. Particularly coming out into that second half, what should we do differently? Is it selection? Is it rotation? Or is it just fully mentality, players not executing what they're meant to be doing?
Yeah, there were just so many instances in the game of a player making a bad play.
Yeah.
A player making a bad pass. Lazy finishing. I feel like Kayla got swatted on a play she really shouldn't have. I feel like Ezzy got blocked twice.
Yeah.
One of them was, a foul. But even still, I feel like a player with the talents of Ezzy should be able to get around her opponent in that situation. So I just think it's individual players needing to realize who they are and realize who they're coming up against. I feel like every Nigerian player that would have had an Aussie on them, an Opal on them in a 1-on-1, would have felt so outmatched.
Yeah.
And I feel like any other game, every single Opal would have been oh, this person cannot hang with me.
Yeah.
So I think I think the responsibility is mainly on the players. I think there is a responsibility on Sandy to, I don't know if we spoke about this on the pod, but we've mentioned it 1,000 times to each other. We talk about the press where we broke them and then Izzy Ballets had to travel.
Yeah.
So we broke the press a few times, one of which led directly to what would have been either a wide open layup for Izzy Ballets, and then I think LJ was trailing her.
Yeah.
So one of 2 wide open layups, and then she just cooked it entirely.
Yeah.
But we just proved how easy the press was to do.
Yeah.
It was if they're going to sell out that much and try and play passing lanes in the back court, they are giving up so much of the court.
Yeah.
And they're giving up wide open lanes, wide open layups, transition opportunities. They're asking us to make them look bad.
Yeah.
And we didn't capitalize on that. Aussie basketball players what do they all have in common? They're all just like annoying defenders, and they can all pass.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the baseline. So work on those things. Like work on bringing those very basics that we all have. Bring them out. Beat the press. Beat this like a press that looks good when you make it look good, and a press that would look really, really bad if you can and should make it look really, really bad. So I think those would be my two biggest. Because I don't think that'd be those are the lessons going from game 1 into game 2. Although those are things we can improve on.
Yeah.
But in terms of looking back at game 1, just such easy fixes.
Yeah. Like call a timeout 3 minutes in and be like, okay, guys, they're doing this, so let's do this. In fact, I think you know what? I think Sandy just cooked the first quarter entirely because. Everyone except Amy Atwell played minutes in the first quarter, and it was like when it became apparent that we were kind of thrown off by Nigeria, instead of being like, all right, cool, I'll get the starters in, tell them to play differently, like you're saying, like break the press, you know how to do it, it's easy. She just like subbed other players on. It was like almost like, it's like, all right, it's the first quarter of the Olympics. Doesn't matter what the result is. Yeah. Like, we're going to give everyone a run, see how everyone goes. And it just lost us the game, basically. Yeah. 100%. It should have just been that response, like 3-4 minutes into the game. You're like, all right, no, we have to beat them now.
Yeah.
Like, we can't just go through the motions and play. We have to like make a conscious effort to beat them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, I feel like players weren't really able to get into a rhythm until the second half.
Yeah.
And then you have players getting into their first half rhythm in the second half when the Nigerian team was in their second half rhythm in the second half. And yeah, as you said, like, why are we going 11 deep in the first quarter? Like, that last rotation would have happened with 3 or 4 minutes to go in the quarter, which means in the first 6 or 7 minutes of the game, 11 of our players had checked into the game, which is just way too many.
Yeah.
Like what?
No one's gonna have taken more than one shot. Like,
Just I feel like the any sort of flow got completely interrupted by Sandy. But yeah, I think top to bottom across the board, I think this was like an unmitigated failure. In terms of the possession count for the game, Nigeria had 68 shots, Australia had 57. Nigeria had 21 free throws, Australia had 18.
Oh man, we shot terrible from the line as well.
Yeah, we shot terrible from the field. We shot better than them from the field.
Yeah.
But 8 of 18 from the free throw line.
I mean, like, we probably could have won the game if we hit all those free throws as well. Like,
had we played that exact game and then made our free throws, you never know what pressure that could have gotten put on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And then also, what could we have proven to ourselves that if we had won that game?
Yeah.
You know, like, if you go into a game and play like that and you lose, what's there to learn? Obviously, you're going to lose that game. But if we were to win, we'd be like, oh shit, we can put up that absolute dog-awful performance.
Yeah. But at this point, it's like, the 3 points might just matter more. Like,
yeah.
Just like, let's should we look to the next two games, or do you have anything else you want to say about this game?
There was one more thing. So I think the Opals in recent history do have this core in recent history do have a track record of playing poorly in the first game of a tournament. 2022 World Cup, they lost against France when we hosted in Australia. The Olympic qualifiers earlier this year, they had just a shocking performance against Brazil. I feel like we won by like 5 points, and I feel like it would have been like high 50s or low 60s, both teams. We actually, in both of those games, we made mistakes very similar to what we made against Nigeria last night. Now the pressure's on, and now we have to win both of these games against Canada and France, who are much better than Nigeria.
Yeah.
So what do you have? What are you looking forward to in these two?
It just changes the whole texture of the tournament, right? Because I'm going into this thinking like, all right, Canada and France, both good perhaps our equals, like in the same tier, if you will.
I would say on an even playing field, we are above them.
Yeah. But then that's what I was going to say. I say we are the best team in the group. Like, on paper and by track record, we are the best team in the group. But now it's just like I have no confidence, like that. I don't have no confidence. We're still a really good team. We still this group has played really good basketball. Like, in the warm-ups, in the qualifying tournament, blah, 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 blah. But, like, it just feels so hard. Like, we're going to have to put out a completely different brand of basketball to what we did to beat either of those teams. Yeah. Yeah,
the Canada game, I feel confident because our big depth is just like... We've got so much big depth, and I don't feel like Canada has too much big depth. So I feel good going into the Canada game. And then also... I got the Lauren Jackson, the article up, quoting Lauren Jackson, talking about how she said, I haven't seen this one, in reference to, what was it? The Opal Star was referring to offensive execution so poor that it almost became comical as the team failed to bring the ball beyond half court time after time against Nigeria.
Yeah, that's really bad.
I haven't seen this
that's
one.
How often that's where the turnovers were happening.
Lauren Jackson, 42, started playing against professional basketball players when she was 14. Checks notes, that is 2/3 of her life. I haven't seen this one. She spent 2/3 of her life playing basketball against professional basketball players and being a professional basketball player for 25 of those years.
At the highest level for like 15 of them.
And I haven't seen this one. Like I think that's a pretty good indication of how the game went. And then something else she mentioned, I think. I read this somewhere, but we had a team that was bringing in a few WNBA players, so we didn't have the same rhythm. I think that's also the case for Canada. They have a lot of WNBA players coming in, not to the caliber that we have. So hopefully that disruption will work in our favour as well. We have Canada next.
I think so.
And then France.
Yeah.
I think I think we'd prefer to end on France and get another game under our belt with Canada. But now, in losing this game, now we have to... Coming out of the group stage is a team that's as good as us. And, look at the rest of the field. Belgium don't have Elamond. That probably makes us the second best team in the world. Coming out of the group, that should just be 3 wins. Like, we shouldn't have to be worrying about what other people are doing. We should just take care of business, get the 3 wins, and exit the group stage like that. But now it matters. The other results matter, and that shouldn't be the way we come out of the group stage.
100%. Yeah, and must win 2 games. Next games, it's not only must win, it's like must easy win. Like we need to just be a completely different team. I mean, Canada had 2 points in a quarter against France.
Canada lost by 24-ish against France, so we need a comfortable win against Canada.
Yeah,
because then they would have to beat Nigeria. If this is the way it broke, then they would have to beat Nigeria by like 30 or 40.
Yeah.
For us to have a chance to get in if we lose against France as the third place.
Yeah.
See, like after one game, we're already talking about this.
This was the one to win. This was the one to win.
Oh, this is the one we could have gone on autopilot. And even if we did go on autopilot like we did, we are the type of team that could just turn around after the first quarter.
Yeah. We've gone X minutes into the pod without saying, like, this is the game that we just went to, have a beer and a Palmer at the pub and watch, I wasn't thinking it was going to be an experience. I was just like, it's going to be so nice seeing the Opals out there doing their thing.
Genuinely.
It's $22 Palmer night.
Yeah.
It's Monday. I'm still going to have a few beers. Almost said few too many, but...
few too many for a Monday.
Yeah, for a Monday, for sure.
That's what this game was supposed to be. And now look at us, sitting upright.
Yeah. Oh, God. I won't be at the pub on Wednesday, that's for sure.
God, no. All right, well, should we take a break and then come back for WNBL free agency?
Sounds good.
The NBA moves so quickly these days, it's hard to keep up. Shams and Woj are breaking stories left and right, but the Quick Time Out is right there with them to keep you informed on the latest NBA news. Stop in and let us break it down as it happens. Find the Quick Time Out on the Deep 2 Podcast Network.
We are back. We're on the clock now. The Boomers are tipping off against Canada in 15 minutes. So that means we have max 15 minutes more with us. Listen up. We apologise. Oz Canada in the men's and then Oz Canada in the women's night after. Back-to-back nights. That's kind of interesting.
with different implications as well.
Much different
Like, we can
implications.
totally lose to Canada tonight, and we have to win tomorrow.
Yeah, we have to win against Canada tomorrow. I didn't think that I would be feeling like this after game ones for the Boomers and the Opals. Like, I felt much more apprehensive going into the Boomers side of the draw.
So ready to lose against Spain. The Boomers. I was like, yeah, that'll probably happen. Like,
yeah, it felt so good to beat them.
Yeah, it felt so good.
Oh, man. Spain at the Olympics is just the most annoying team to come against. Like, we're about a generation or a generation and a half removed from the Gasol brothers and Ibaka as their front line. But then there was this tweener phase where, like, Ricky Rubio said to Donovan Mitchell, he was like, FIBA's a tougher league, and then he flopped through the entire thing. And then the Spanish team against Australia flopped through the entire game, and we just took care of them.
So good. Garuba, absolute bum. And that's why we left Matisse Thybulle at home, so Delhi can, make sure that we don't get in a fight with Usman Garuba in the second quarter.
Great call, Gorge.
So good. But that's for another podcast.
That is for another podcast. Where's my text?
Well, should we? So we're going to talk about WNBL free agency. I have your text up.
I've got it up as well.
Specifically looking at the Olympians who've moved or re-signed.
Even more specifically, the Australian Olympians.
Yeah.
Because it dawned on me that we hadn't communicated that, but I think we understood each other.
Well, I'm not sure if any non-Australian Olympians have signed WNBL contracts in the off-season.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
A lot of these are re-signings as well.
Yeah. Well, should we start with the player who got the the third least amount of minutes if you count 0 as the least?
Who's that?
Against Nigeria. It's Mariana Tolo.
It's Mariana Tolo, and who had the first most least turnovers.
Wow.
And the first most only 0 turnover game.
Apart from Amy Atwell, of course.
Mariana Tolo signs with the Bendigo Spirits. Now, I'm not too sure what Bendigo are doing here. I feel like they lost their Froling sister, although I might be misremembering that. Ali Wilson.
Yeah, they lost Ali Wilson,
also moved. Hint, hint, we'll be talking about that in just a minute or two. But I'm very interested to see how this works. I feel like last year they had Ruth Davis as their big, and I feel like the idea they were going for, they kind of got the idea, but they didn't really execute it perfectly, and I feel like Mariana Tolo will fit into that role perfectly. And coming off a few seasons playing in Europe, I think she'll just bring like that worldwide experience back to Bendigo. And I think that she'll be a great inside presence to go with their outside shooting. Hopefully, Cracker resigns. I feel like she had a great 3-point shooting season. And then Abby Wayrung ended up having like a 38% 3-point shooting season. But after starting, I feel like it was like 2 of 20 to the start of the season.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, Tolo and Wayrung will look good together. Marco, what do you think about this?
I think it's good. It feels like it feels like it'll edge them at least in, like, it'll make them as good as everyone else who's getting better. You know what I mean? Like, because they were sort of amongst that pack at the end of last season.
Yeah.
But she's so solid. Like, she does everything you want a big to do, really.
Yeah.
Like, completely anchors your defense. Runs the floor. And then I think she said in her after signing, she's very excited to play with Kelsey Griffin again. I think they've played a lot of seasons together.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So that'll be an interesting pairing.
Yeah.
Bit of chemistry.
Yeah. We could have used that last night. And such a physical presence just owns the key on either end. And I feel like if you could get past Ruth Davis, which a lot of players proved they could do, then the lane looked quite open, and I feel like she'll just close that lane defensively.
100%. Yeah. She's got to be one of the better paid presences in the WNBL. Yeah.
There'd be a good chance she's the biggest paid presence.
Yeah, for sure.
Jade Melbourne re-signs with the Canberra Capitals.
Yeah, that's it's nice that she's having a really good season in the WNBA. It's like, sure, I'm coming back and playing WNBL. That's all I really have to say about it.
She's a gun. She's an absolute star. I read something about when so they went back to they changed coaches, and because their coach from last season, the name escapes me right now, but because she terminated her contract, that meant that Jade Melbourne's contract would lapse.
Oh.
Like there was a clause in Jade Melbourne's contract, but then
Right.
I think she just immediately re-signed the contract.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. I mean, like she speaks so highly of playing for Canberra and playing for the fans in Canberra, and I feel like she's just like a, you know, I can't imagine her ever not playing there. Unless it's just to like focus on the WNBA season or something.
Yeah.
But
or go make $1 million in Europe.
Yeah. Cash in Europe. But yeah, this feels like a no-brainer. If she's playing in the WNBL, it'll probably be in Canberra.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, like good thing to do at that point in your career. Keep developing. Like, you know, will probably be like, just like easily one of the best players in the league next season as well.
Oh man,
like, she could be a sort of MVP shout.
I was going to say, probably front runner of the MVP.
Yeah. And then it's just such a good, like, she's on such a steep trajectory.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I feel like it might be the point of her career where she might just be like, okay, cool. Had a pretty good season with the Capitals last season. You know, had this great experience with Seattle in my first season. Now getting some good minutes with Washington. Went to my first Olympics. Now I think it's time to just beat down on the league.
Yeah.
Like, let me just put up numbers every single night.
Yeah. I've arrived now. So, you know.
Yeah. Let me cash out. Let me cash in my my stat stuffing. Check
For sure.
Let's do the links all in one. So Annalie Maley and Amy Atwell re-sign with the Perth Lynx, and Ali Wilson leaves the Bendigo Spirit and signs with the Perth Lynx. Do you want to take this away?
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, again, talked about this last season, like, the Lynx's only real issue was, like, continuity and not having enough time together and health as a group. And so just, like, getting those two names back in, like, I guess your kind of marquee bigger names who might go elsewhere. And, like, just putting faith in Maley after, you know, the finals as well is, like, so good. Because she just, like, obviously she had just, like, the worst finals ever, but she put so much of herself, like, into those games and on the line there. And then, Ali Wilson, just, like, awesome death. I think her and Amy Atwell are dating at the moment as well, so you know, that's nice. Like, it's good to have that chemistry on the team. But yeah, I feel like the Lynx will just be like such a hot team at the beginning of next season. Yeah,
I feel like Ali Wilson kind of takes those touches away from Erin McDonald probably doesn't return, but like the non-Maley and non-Atwell touches, and I guess this upcoming season non-McDonald touches, although I'm sure they'll still bring in a point.
Yeah.
But like those other touches that go that trickle down the rest of the team, I think she just gets those touches, and she's so good as like a tweener, finding the gaps, and she'll just play off Maley and Atwell and the rest of the team so well. Gemma Potter's not returning.
Right.
I don't know where, or is it Emily Potter? Emily Potter.
Yeah,
Emily Potter's not returning, but so I don't know what their replacement would be, unless they play Mackenzie Clinch-Hoycard and then just space out the floor, which would work well for Wilson. But I think Potter was pretty integral to the way they ran their offense last season, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But coming out of this off-season, your team is the one that's either re-signed or signed Annalie Maley, Amy Atwell, Ali Wilson. Yeah. That means the other teams haven't. Yeah. Which I just think means that's great.
Yeah, 100%. Like, they're building something really good over there. Also, Ali Wilson's 3x3. So, like, her and Maley. Yeah. Or, just have, like, the best chemistry ever, because that 3x3 team is just so locked in with each other.
And they played in Bendigo for a few years. And, the 3x3 team, you said Atwell and Wilson are dating, and the 3x3 team have bloody Marina Whittle and Annalie Maley.
Jeez, it's all just big loving, isn't it?
And in the I can't remember where this was written, but Maley posted it to her Insta. It said she's playing the 3x3 team with fiance Lauren Mansfield.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
who has signed with the Townsville Fire.
And is not fiancé to Annalie Maley at all, actually.
Not at all. Yeah. So Lauren Mansfield moves to the Townsville Fire from Adelaide. I'm interested to know how much of this decision was made by who. That was so poorly worded. But what factors came into this decision, and how much of it was made by Isabelle Borlase having this like breakout year,
Right. Yeah.
as like the main now the main guard in Adelaide, because surely if you're Lauren Mansfield, you'd love to play with Steph Talbot,
Yeah.
and potentially, hopefully, they can attract another international player like they did with Brianna Turner last season. But Lauren Mansfield to the Townsville Fire, I think that's great for her. Steph Reed will be playing in Europe next season, so a lot of guard minutes will be opened up there. But this just feels like the rich getting richer.
Yeah. Is
Townsville?
Will Wickham still be with Townsville?
Potentially.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these players haven't signed.
Because I really like that guard pairing.
Oh, that'd be deadly.
Yeah. Mansfield and Wickham. And just like a little bit more oomph in the playmaking as well. Yeah.
Really bolster up the backcourt, which was already like such a great backcourt.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we'll do the W. We'll do another episode covering more of the free agency in a couple of weeks' time. But we just thought we'd go through all the Olympians before Marco and I cut off the mic and turn our attention to the Boomers against Team Canada.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Lucas. And go Olympics.
Yeah, go Olympics.
Yeah, go to all the Olympians. These Olympians getting their bag and getting their medal. Or probably not half of them getting their medal after the performance we saw.
Yeah. Didn't even talk about it, but they haven't started yet. The 3x3, the Gangurrus start, I think, tonight.
But all their games are on at ungodly hours, unfortunately.
Very ungodly hours. I like the way they do the 3x3 thing, though.
Yeah.
I think they play like 3 games a day or 2 games a day, and then everyone just plays each other. And then I assume it would have some form of playoff.
Oh, it's like a big pool, like.
Oh, or were you thinking? Wait. So I think everyone just plays each other that's participating,
right?
And then like top 4 go into the finals or something.
Yeah. Like it's big, like 12 group of 12.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. What I thought you were saying was like it finishes like a table.
Oh,
and then whoever finishes the thing on top.
No, they got it. They got to have a final game. Like you have to.
Yeah.
You have to have a gold medal match.
Yeah. True. Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.